Roger, I've also got my concerns about where do we go when the second lockdown comes, because the restrictions will be even more this time.
Oh, really?
That's what I think they'll try. Yep.
Can I raise a point here? Australia is almost empty in terms of population. Like, if you travel from Melbourne to Sydney, whether you drive or whether you fly, 90+% of the time you see empty lands. Would everybody agree with that? Now,
Well, farmland.
Yeah, we see farmland. Yeah, we see farmland, right? And some of them have got some cattle in there, or some of them have got some sheep. But in general, the lands are empty, right? Now, this is a question I've posed many times. Why is that land not in the hands of the people? Who's holding that land and keeping it from the people? Right? Does that make sense? There's a huge areas of land in Australia which is fertile and it's not being used efficiently, right? Because cattle farming is not an efficient way. From what we know, it's not a very efficient way to grow food. And the example that I've posed before is on reasonable pasture, one head of cattle requires 5 hectares, right? But 5 hectares, that's a big area. That's 500 metres by 100 metres, right? You can probably feed 5 families on 5 hectares. And that one head of cattle can only feed 1 family, right? This is based on information that I've worked with on nutrition, and in this case it was Ayurvedic yoga nutrition. So don't think that then there is nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. And there's also a mindset element which is so very important to observe. If you're thinking about running somewhere to escape something, that's not the right energy. The energy needs to be, this is exciting. This is something I would love to do. And that's to go into a rural area with a bunch of people and set up an eco village where we're nurturing the earth, right? There's a big difference between staying in a big city, because when you're living in a big city, you are dependent on trucks trucking food in every day, right? A big city has only got a few days food supply. If the trucks stop, you'll see what happened with the toilet paper, I don't know, a month or 2 ago now. The food will disappear off the shelves very, very quickly, right? And so what I'm saying is, in a rural cooperative community, yes, you have to start getting more self-sufficient. And that's not impossible. It's not that difficult. It's what humans have done for a long, long time. This big city phenomenon is only very recent. And that's part of what I want to present tonight. How about I go into a share screen now, and I'll bring up some of the information I wanted to bring up. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to mute everyone.
Debbie, is Larry and Debbie, are you two together? Because Debbie, you've got a screen up there. Have you got another computer going?
No.
A separate computer?
The poster here is the video that Maureen told us about only a few days ago. And some of you might have seen it. When you get a chance, I would say it's a good idea to watch it. However, I've put some summaries which come from the video on the screen, and I'd like to start by talking about those. And if I go to the top left-hand corner, it says, if you value immediate comfort over freedom, you will have to relinquish your personal rights and be governed by an external authority. And what that refers to is, if you stay with the technocratic society, which is generally a big city crowding of people, where you get benefits and privileges, they will feed you, right? They will do their corporate farming, which is not that friendly to the earth. It destroys topsoil. Just turning over the soil and then putting chemicals on it is destroying topsoil. I've played movies on that in our cinema earlier this year and quite a bit last year as well. The most significant documentary was called The Need to Grow. And I also showed corroborating information going back several decades, which was warning us of this problem. Right? The more we do corporate farming, the more we're destroying the topsoil. And the reason's simple, right? It exposes the soil to the air when they turn it over, and then they poison it with chemicals as well. And we're ingesting that stuff. And it's totally opposite to what we know of permaculture, right? Where we mimic nature. And because humanity has taken that path with corporate farming, to me, it's not a surprise that we're under attack. For this technocratic system to survive, it needs to eliminate 90% of the population, right? And that's not a figure just plucked out of the air. It was announced on the what they call the Georgia stones. If you haven't heard of that, look it up online. These stones were erected in, I think, around 1980 in Georgia, and nobody knows where they came from, right? And they have announced reducing the population 90%. It's totally contrary to the spiritual, metaphysical guidance that we've been receiving through various means. And that says to the contrary, there is enough for everyone, right? If we have a consciousness, so this is a very important point, if we have a consciousness that there is not enough, that's actually an excuse for genocide, right? So we've got to be careful with our consciousness, right? When I get further into the presentation, you might appreciate that there is enough for everyone. And so get that idea that there's not enough out of your consciousness, because it is an excuse for getting rid of people, and that's what's been initiated through this lockdown. It's going to destroy businesses, it's going to destroy livelihoods, and we're likely to go into a deep depression, far worse than the recessions, and probably worse than the 1930s depression, and that was very severe. Okay, so the immediate comfort is the technocratic system will look after you, but you will have to obey, right? You'll have to relinquish your freedom. So if I move on to the next one, and this is, well, in that first one, that's exactly what we've been saying for a long, long time. With the next one, it says, I promise you, you nor I cannot stop or change the collective direction of where this is going. right? What that's referring to is there is a collective choice being made by humanity, which is largely a love affair with technology. And I'm not saying technology is bad, but without an advance of spirituality, technology is dangerous, right? We could be going, it's already happening. We're going into an artificial intelligence, machine intelligence regime. And of course, machines don't have compassion. You become just an item on their database, and you can just be removed. Your rights can be removed instantly. I could almost say I'm experiencing that right now. My website has been shut down. If you go to magpiehouse.com.au right now, it's no longer up. And I'm not quite sure why. I might be able to sort it out, but also my mail server service has put what they call a temporary limit on my emails, right? So I can't get my email broadcasts out. Now, isn't that
George? I checked your website before. I was able to get on.
Sorry?
I got onto your website before.
Did you? Maybe it's come back up.
Maybe about 10, 15 minutes ago.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, thanks for telling me that. But I've got another problem. My mail server has been they've put a temporary limit on, and there's no reason for it. And I couldn't get an email broadcast out on this week, or the last few days, put it that way. And that shows you the power of the technocrats, right? Even if what's happening in this case isn't actually a conspiracy item, right? It shows you the power they have. If they want to shut you down, they just stop you from broadcasting your email news, right? And they can do it just like that. And that's where I have a problem with technocracy moving ahead without spirituality, right? And I've also got some fantastic study material on this, how advanced societies operate, and that's what we need to do. We need to grow up. This is a consciousness problem. You won't fix it by all the other means of, say, economic, political, military, educational, and all that sort of stuff. It's a spiritual problem, right? And spirituality means how we treat each other. We haven't recognized that we are all divine beings, and every last individual counts, right? I'll just mention on that particular point, and I've brought this up before, that democracy is a failure, right? It doesn't work because it marginalizes the minority. If you're part of the minority and 50% rules, you don't matter. And one of the big examples of that is if you are electrosensitive, let's say it's severely electrosensitive, and that could apply to close to 3% of the population. You don't matter, right? And that doesn't make sense. In a highly evolved society, they always use consensus. That means everybody has got a vote, but the vote counts for everybody else, right? Nobody is marginalized. All right, I'll move on from this video. Hang on. I better mention, you nor I cannot stop or change the collective direction of where this is going. Now, the law groups that I'm associated with, and we've had lots of presentations at Magpie House on this, and I've presented some myself. Very powerful stuff, and some of the most brilliant minds probably in the world on common law and constitutional law and all that sort of thing. But despite that brilliance and that power, they'll be able to achieve something, but they won't be able to stop the monster, right? And the monster is the collective consciousness, right? I'm not blaming any particular people or persons, and even though there's a group, an elite, which is giving these orders worldwide, and it has to be worldwide. Otherwise, why would it happen in all countries all at once, right? The point I'm making here is we're not going to stop the monster, but the monster's realm is in the big city realm, right? And so if groups of us are able to start rural communities and cooperatives, eco-villages, and that's what this video is talking about, then I've got the idea that they'll leave us alone, right? And I can justify that. The structure that we are proposing is a useful structure for the community, the local community, even though it's disconnected from the corporate influence. It'll fulfill a function where I say they will leave us alone. And I think when you watch the video, I think he would say the same thing. The third item here, this is what the guy has said. 18 months ago, I faced the reality of this question. The question is, should I move out of the corporatized society? And he says, and decided that I wanted to be free, independent. I chose freedom from immediate comfort. And we've touched on immediate comfort before. Immediate comfort is the technocratic society that does everything for us, right? In fact, I've got corroborating information on that. And it might go out of people's belief systems, but I'll just describe it briefly. It's talking about a civilization on another planet, right? This is information from that other planet. And on that other planet, they are super technocratic. In other words, their technology has increased dramatically and at the expense of spirituality. And the people that live on that planet, there's no physical human contact. You're kept in a cell and everything's done for you. If you don't wake up in the morning, they're going to flash you to get you up. And everything that you eat will be programmed. Everything that you do, and you might have some vocation or whatever. And the interesting aspect of it, even procreation is done technocratically, right? They've got a wall, a whole wall in a room, which is like a video. And that's how you have sex, through that, what's being projected on that screen. And then that is used to capture your the sperm, and it's then artificially, they use artificial insemination to create their children. Is that the sort of society we want? That's kind of the ultimate application of technocracy. To me, that's a pretty ghastly idea. And I've got lots of corroborating information showing that's the way it could go if we're not careful. The fourth item from this Real Order video, the guy says, right now we are in the process of purchasing a second larger farm near Pineal, that's the name of their village, which will allow us to further expand the community. Right. Now, some of you are aware that for 10 years, we've had several hundred hectares in the northern tablelands, and we're in a similar situation. Right? We'd like to expand into neighbouring properties which are adjoining, and they're available. The frustration is, okay, well, who's willing to make a change? Who's willing to look at this idea where we can go into rural communities and take advantage of the window of opportunity that I mentioned before, right? This lockdown has more or less ended, and they're easing restrictions on the 1st of June, and that's when we've decided to travel back to Melbourne. Right before that, it probably would have been risky. All right, so now most of you are in Melbourne, so don't despair. We'll see you there, right? And we'll be able to put some of these plans into action if people are willing. All right, so that's my commentary on the video Reworld Order. And let's see what else I've put here. It's a window of opportunity and choice between lockdowns. It's a must-watch 45-minute presentation. And yes, this is what else came out of that video, and I totally agree with it. This is exactly what we've been talking about. Let those who choose the 5G deep state comfort have it. Right? In other words, if that's what the collective is choosing, let them have it. Right? There's an alternative that we can build up if we choose to. Right? Now, I do hear the arguments that there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I don't go along with that because we know how powerful we are as spiritual beings. We know the power of our own collectives. You know, if you try and do this sort of escape alone, it's going to be too hard. You need to be in a group and mimic the highly evolved structures that have been used on Earth and have been used on other planets to form communities. And in those collectives, there'll be a recognition that we are spiritual beings inhabiting a physical body, and that we have an aspect of the spirit within us all. And by doing these sort of projects without fear, but with joy, if joy is the primary motivation, I can guarantee that we will be protected, right? So don't look at it as nowhere to run and hide. Look at it as a place we can go and set up something which cannot be penetrated. One of the points on that is the law groups may not be able to stop the tidal wave of attacks on humanity. However, they're also teaching us very powerful tools on how to protect ourselves in those situations where we set up those rural communities, eco-villages, and so forth. Yeah, there's a spiritual aspect to that where if we are, or one way I've heard it expressed is connecting with the spirit. And if we have that connection, we will be protected. We can be guaranteed of that. Okay, so I've said here, as this video, the reworld order is totally compatible with our own message. Please consider joining our Magpie Alert webinar for a rural cooperative opportunity. Oh, that was tonight, yeah, and you're here, obviously. And an example, if you want to see more of what we've been talking about, go to our YouTube channel, and if the website is up, it's got the link there for how to find that. And you could watch a prior presentation from maybe 2 weeks ago. I've called it Magpie Alert, the second wave of lockdown and the rural solution. And I've also said, do not leave your choice too late, right? Because if we leave our choices too late, if we don't start taking action, then it may be too late to try and make or it might be a lot more difficult, put it that way. Okay, so if I go further down,